David Cloutier. At this point, we had a chance to talk a little bit, so I know that he has found, if I can use these words, David, new life through Vedanta. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thank you to everybody for being here today. I'd like to thank the organizers of this event.
Just a little closer to the mic.
Yeah, that's good. It's an honor to be asked to speak here and serve in the position that I currently occupy. I'm the secretary on the board of the Vedanta Society, and through the Dharma that I participate in life, I find spiritual tools and I apply those to my life, and so this is an opportunity for me. I'd like to start out by saying that I feel like I am a part of the legacy of Swami Vivekananda. You know, when as I lived my life, I was came to a point where I was searching for something and I didn't know what I was searching for. I had experiences that I couldn't explain. Swami Vivekananda, you know, in following his Dharma, brought Vedanta from the forest to the household, and in making this readily available, I found a way to understand myself and my life. Without Vedanta, I can't understand that. The topic today is morals and eternal values, and I would like to explain how I understand what those particular words, and explain those particular words, what they mean to me. The time is short here today, and this topic has been discussed over and over for many years. In this presentation, I'll try not to sound like a broken record and repeat those. I would like to offer my experience and how Vedanta has explained what has happened in my life. And hopefully that will maybe help to, I hope to, help anybody that is looking to increase their value of the eternal values of all the religions of the world, the ones that do not change as times change, that are consistent through the religions of the world. You know, the oneness of these principles. Unless we develop ethical values, we cannot live a moral life. Ethical elements are essential to human health and well-being, both for the individual and the society. Humanity has struggled through history to discover these ethical frameworks. If one does not value an ethical framework, there is no hope of making the precepts a part of one's character. An object by itself has no value. It has to be made into something useful to gain value. The precepts that we are talking about here today help us to create a morality. And morality is the commitment to one's ethics, and is manifest in our actions. It is determined by how one's genetic makeup interacts with the environment. So it is a product of both nature and nurture. In short, morality is manifest in our behavior concerning the outer world. The practical application of ethics, values, and morality lead to integrity and thought, word, and action. But this practice is just a means to an end. Its value is instrumental. These eternal values are instrumental. They lead me somewhere. Valuable only in relationship to achievements. Vedanta ethics and moral virtues are rooted in the ideal of realizing and manifesting our own innate divinity. This alone is the intrinsic value. Whatever brings us closer to that goal is ethical and moral. Whatever prevents us from attaining it is not. That comes from the Toronto Vedanta website. In order to elevate ethical precepts from social convention to eternal values, they would have to transcend time and space. Their applications have universal benefit and are consistent from system to system. When one examines the religions of the world, he finds that no religion holds a monopoly on ethical or moral principles. When examining the fundamental principles, all are the same. All moral codes are based upon the ideal of unselfishness. In order to elevate, Patanjali divided the moral precepts into two categories, yama and niyama. Each category consisting of 5 precepts. Yama consists of I'll repeat them even though most people know them. Non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, chastity or celibacy, and non-receiving of gifts. Niyama consists of cleanliness, contentment, austerity, study, self-surrender to God. Practically speaking, defects in our character occur through the loss of ethical integrity. When we apply self-elements in thought, word, and action, after time our ego succeeds in hiding these defects and their selfish motives in our subconscious. We become aware of their existence. We become unaware of their existence. We repeatedly act on them through habit. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of this problem. We trade love for self-gain. Our minds become impure. Our ego and separateness grows, and we enter disillusion, delusion, and confusion. This is the point where insanity reigns. We start to say one thing and do another, and selfishness manifests into countless other forms of defect. What do we gain? We trade love and purity for power. Socially speaking, there are only 3 forms of social power. They are economic, influential, and political power. I once lived my life in a selfish way. If I could not see, touch, and feel it, it did not exist. I achieved the goals that I set for myself and attained the material items that to me signified success. Money, material possessions, family, and friends were valuable to me. No matter how much I had, I still had an empty suffering though. The suffering that I felt, I attributed to the trouble that I had possessing family and friends and other people. I had a wife. I had children. I owned them. They were my possessions. Through this time of suffering, that empty feeling that I'm talking about, I always tried to fill that void that I felt with material things, and there was nothing wrong with what I did. I feel so fortunate. I've always done whatever I have wanted in this life, and the trucks, the cars, the whatever. I sought those, and I thought those are what I needed and wanted. And I lived in a 3-dimensional world. So that 3-dimensional world, eventually, once I got to the point where I thought, the end of suffering would be, I realized that there was no end there. The suffering was just greater and greater and greater. The more I had, the more I suffered. So I had to make some changes. Like I had to figure out what is wrong. I tried to talk to the people I hang out with. I tried to tell them that how I felt. And of course, cows hang out with cows and chickens hang out with chickens, so these people were like me. And they said to me, well, if you don't want it, give it to me. This is an opportunity for them to take what I got. So, they were not sympathetic at all, and they couldn't really understand what I was talking about. I started looking at things differently, and I started adding spiritual principles into my life. Things that I didn't participate in before, in like empathy and compassion, and I tried to understand these principles, even though they weren't logical. You know, they weren't logical in a three-dimensional world, because that's where I live. And in trying to live by these spiritual principles, I surrendered my old ways of thinking. I did not simply resign myself to the fact that my best thinking brought me to complete and utter despair. I surrendered everything that I thought I knew about the truth. I was willing to surrender everything. I rejected whatever I thought and how I felt. Through the observance of a set of principles that I decided I needed to live by. You know, there's 24 of them, and you know, in Vedanta there's 5, and there's 5. In you know, Catholicism, you know, there's the 10 Commandments. There's a bunch of spiritual principles. You know, all of these things. You know, I could find words for 80 different spiritual principles, and in starting to follow these spiritual principles, everything started to change. The world I lived in became less valuable to me. And the material things in that world became less valuable. And these spiritual principles became valuable. And that's the point when we talk about intensity and in our intent. The amount that we value these spiritual principles are directly proportional to the knowledge that comes to us. And how does that come to us? After about a year and a half of intensely trying to live by spiritual principles, I added meditation to my practice. And I had what I call a black experience in meditation. It involved dimensions, when you start talking dimensions, people started thinking, you know, what's he talking about? You know, in Vedanta, when you talk about the 4th dimension, you talk about the material world, the 3-dimensional world in time. So as soon as there's time involved, there's a 4th dimension. And the 5th dimension involves mind, and 6 and 7 and 8. So there's that experience of dimensional time and space was absolutely frightening to me. It made everything I thought I knew about the truth totally invalid. I was totally groundless, and I was in fear, and I remained in fear for 5 years. That fear drove me to seek an answer to what happened to me. And you know, I sought through quantum physics, theory of relativity, occultism, mysticism, the religions of the world. And I always felt, every time I was searching through these different places or topics, that I was going to find what I was looking for. And I would get to the end and it was not there. The fear was still there, and my answer was not there. I finally met a person. I left the province of Alberta, and I didn't know why. My son asked me, Dad, why are we leaving? Why are we going there? And I told him, I don't know. We just think it's the right thing to do. And he said, good enough for me, and we went. I did not know why I was going there. I met a person there who was a white person. He was teaching a meditation class, and I never went to the class, but my friend was going there. And I asked him what he did what this guy did while everybody was meditating. And he says, I asked him if he meditated. He said, no, he doesn't meditate. He sits there and says prayers for us. And when he said that, I knew that this person knows something. There is dangers in meditation, and without guidance and help, I'm starting off 12,000 years ago. The religions of the world that carry these keys, they hold not only the keys, but the framework for which the different dimensions, they hold the keys to the idea of how these different worlds exist, and how you can participate in these different worlds. And so after seeing him, I asked him, he always told me, I'm not a teacher, and you know, anything that I say to you, you're going to have to verify for yourself. He said, in spirituality, it's always repeatable. If I did a certain group of things and something happened to me, then it'll happen to you, and it'll happen to the next person and the next person. It's repeatable. So it's an experiment that produces a result. And I unknowingly knew the steps to the experiment, and in my first black experience in meditation, I was able to experience something. I still to this day do not know whether the knowledge that came to me come from outside of me or from within me. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the more I participate in Vedanta, and I avoid the pitfalls of spiritual life through the guidance of Vedanta, that I can detach from the material world, and I can participate in a higher life. And when I look at you know, the different religions of the world, you know, I was baptized in Catholicism, and you know, I had all the rights of a Christian, but except for the last rites, of course. The value of a teacher is indispensable once you get to a certain point. It's too complex. It's too I want to say dangerous, but you know, it sounds like you don't want to go there. But it's if you just keep trying, you'll make it. But if I follow Vedanta, if I follow a teacher, if I follow the guidance that's offered to me, if I live my life, if I live Dharma, and I live intently, and I really value the things that I learn from the experiences of my life, then that experience just increases my value of the whole experience. And the more I experience, the more knowledge comes to me in meditation. And I feel like meditation, contemplation, concentration, and meditation is where the truth comes from. I didn't read everything, you know, that everybody's read. You know, how do I know this stuff? I don't know how I know it. But it's not fake. It's not a lie, and it's not. It's for everybody. Everybody can do this. You know, I'm always unsure if people in Hinduism, if they read these things,